Well, welcome everyone. I am super excited to be able to hang out with you on the Loving Healy, Loving Yourself moment in time. That's today I'm going to cover some stuff about the emotional you, the energetic you, the frequency of you, and then the bridge to what I like to call the quantum field, or what we understand as the quantum field, or the field of information. And so we're going to get into that. To start with, my name is Ken Close, for those of you who don't know me. And I've been studying neuroscience as well as epigenetics for a number of years. I'm an electronics engineer by trade. Now, again, I don't like to define myself at one particular thing, but my education, my formal education, my degree is in engineering, specifically electronics engineering. And one of the concepts in engineering, in any kind of form, is if we can prove it mathematically, we can create it physically, right? So in electronics, that's pretty much how it all works. We build circuitry and systems and even programs mathematically, and then we can then build them into physical form. So I say that because it's going to kind of play into some of the understandings down the road as we get started and talk more. I'm also a martial arts instructor for decades. I taught in the field of martial arts, which is another side of both combining physical and spiritual self into a certain ability to do certain things. And martial arts isn't a pathway to violence or fighting. It's a pathway to inner peace and control over the physical side. So that inner peace and the physical world, there's a marriage, a dance, right? And that's why some martial arts looks pretty cool, right? It's like a dance. And you see some of the amazing abilities that these bodies can do under that modality. So that's been my journey up to this point. Some of the evolution has been from owning a brick and mortar business in the fitness arena. So there's a lot of fitness background in my life, and then the transformation into the body's nourishment, and then into the understanding of the mind nourishment. Okay, so that's been kind of my evolutionary story. With that, I want to kind of dive in a minute about who are we? You know, who is the me that I see? A lot of times, obviously, we don't need a mirror, right, to see who we are. But when we do look in the mirror, sometimes that reflection gives us a message, right? And that reflection is either, wow, I'm rocking life. This is an amazing view that I've got right here in front of me. Or perhaps it is a default of less than the perspective of others that have on us. So we have a perspective of ourselves, other people have a perspective of us, and we look in the mirror and we think, man, I wish I was that, or look at that flaw, or what's going on there, and these perceptions start to meld into into us. The other part of us is the one that we don't see in the mirror, that is constantly the conversation in the back of our minds or within, and the voices you all are aware of. And if you're not aware of it and you're inside and you're saying, I don't have a voice, and there's no voice. What are you talking about, Ken? Well, that's the voice I'm talking about. So sometimes we don't even think or are aware that there's actually inner dialogue going on within us. And it's so normal, or it seems to be just who we are. And so we don't notice it. And so this is why I bring attention to that, is that if you don't think there's a little inner voice, it's a little inner voice repeating every word I say within context of your awareness and your ability to understand it. And that little inner voice I call the inner roommate. I didn't coin that phrase. Michael Singer coined that phrase in his book, The Untethered Soul, which is an amazing book I highly recommend. And it gives a good insight to what this inner dialogue is all about, and how it's defining or attempting to define who we are and how we operate. Those kind of concepts, when we're trying to deviate from that or change anything about that, whether it be loving ourselves more or building a different relationship with our finances or our people around us or our own bodies, it's that inner dialogue that has a tendency to keep us within a boundary. And I promise you that if you were to ever repeat every word that little inner roommate was speaking out loud to the rest of the world, people would wonder why you're so mean to yourself. Why do you constantly barrage yourself with things that don't support you? And I promise you, if you spoke to your friends in the way in which that inner dialogue was partaking in that relationship, if you spoke it outwardly to your friends or your family or your coworkers, you wouldn't have very many friends or very many family members that wanted to hang around with you, because it's such an inner dialogue that doesn't support us. So those views of us, the one in the mirror and then the one that's inside, that's how we're kind of feeling who we are, what we are. And it's those pieces that keep us kind of within a boundary. Not kind of, but does keep us within a boundary. And I want to talk about how do we move beyond the boundary? All right. How does loving ourselves or even any interaction with ourselves contribute to the moving of those boundaries? And what I've always trained or always taught others is the body itself. The body itself is a record of the past. The body holds all the information of you up to this point, this very present moment. All that information is there, built into the hardware, or I like to call the organic suit that we're walking around in. And every one of the experiences that we ever have in our life, every experience, big or small, is recorded in that organic suit, whether it be in the gray matter of the brain and how the circuitries are wired together, or in a muscle in which it understands when a command comes from the brain, there's a movement that corresponds to the command. All of that is part of your past, your hardware that you operate in. And that's another you. That's the one you see when you look in the mirror, right? Whether it be awesome or you're judging, whatever it is, that's the you that the world sees, the physical you. There's some things attached to that physical you. Of course, what you look like, but also how you behave. The physical parts that you do, such as speaking and moving, those actions, those all define you. And the world looks at you based on that. And so you could have the most amazing demeanor inside and have the grumpiest face, and the world is going to look at you as a grumpy person, right? It's that, again, this is not family friendly, but that resting bitch face that you might have heard of before. And I would call it another one if it was a male figure. I mean, that word tends to say there's a gender attached to it, but I'm telling you, men have resting bitch faces too. So it's all non-gender specific. Just understand that there's a demeanor inside that may not match the outside. And it's funny how we can see certain wrinkles and composites of the configurations of the face and stuff that kind of give an indication of the past, like the frowny wrinkles, that are just there all the time, whether they're muscularly infused or not. Then there's the smile wrinkles, right? So the face is kind of giving a representation of what we do most of the time. And that's part of that history. So the skin, the outer layer of our bodies, have an ability to give representation of who we are. The muscles, they give another representation of who we are, right? The ability, the range of motion within different limbs give representation of who we are. And the world can see that. So imagine you, when you meet someone and you see that they move in certain ways, you start to identify who they are by those movements. You meet someone and you see the physical characteristics of their bodies. We assess 400 billion bits of information per second through the reticular activating system. That's a portion of between the brain and body stem. There's a connective matrix of information highway called the reticular activating system. 400 billion bits of information is passed through that system. That is what you're aware of consciously and subconsciously. And so when you meet someone, you don't even understand how many different evaluations you're making of that person, not just physically, but you can feel their energy, right? Have you ever walked into a room and you're just like, ooh, wait a minute. The little spidey senses and the tingly stuff or whatever is going on, and you're like, hold on a minute, I don't like this. Or you meet someone, you're just like, man, you're my best friend. I love you already. You know what I'm saying? So this is that 400 billion bits of information going on behind the scenes and in the present view. Our present view is only about 2,000 bits of that. 400 billion, 2,000. Quite a diverse amount of information there, what we're aware of and what we're not. And I'll just give you a little, in neuroscience, the understanding is that one conversation consumes around 12 to 1,300 bits of information. So if there's only 2,000 available in your awareness, can you have two conversations at once? Ever tried that? Try holding a conversation with two people, two different conversations. You got one cell phone here and one cell phone there, and you're like trying to, no, it doesn't work because you're not great at either one, right? So this is our bandwidth in which we're able to consciously and cognitively be involved with on a moment by moment basis. But behind the scenes, the other part that's making us up or that's creating us or influencing the world, that's a key piece of information, is that 400 billion bits behind the scenes. So when we are navigating through our three-dimensional space, our world, we gain experiences every moment, this second, and guess what? Another second, another moment. These are all experiences you and I are having together in this present moment, in addition to what's going on behind the scenes in your world, in your space. Like Tina, she's admitting people in the background for me, and she may be muting people. She's doing stuff, listening to my words. And so her 2,000 bits of information are being separated over the functional things she's doing in her life. So if we're going to make any changes in our life, and I'm talking about loving ourselves. This first segment is on loving ourselves. We'll get to loving Healy in a moment, but I want you to understand what it's like to love yourself. Because a lot of times folks don't give that permission to themselves because of the events going on inside, because of the history built in the organic suit, because of the inner roommate dialogue that has been rehearsed over and over again for so long. And like any other behavior pattern, all it requires is enough rehearsal over time for it to be built into the biology of the body and then become a new you. So personality, of course, is built upon what we think, what we believe, and what we do. It starts to build a perception that is orchestrated by our reticular activating system, the 400 billion bits of information. And that personality, because of the reticular activating system, starts to bring true whatever it is that you believe, perceive, and surrender to. So 400 billion bits of information is a lot, but it's still a bandwidth. It's still a parameter. And to be safe, the number one thing of our biology is to survive. And there is a biological imperative for that to happen. That's why our species is still here. And so the reticular activating system is a great big part of that. Its job is to keep us alive. And those boundaries are set based on who we are in our life. And then those boundaries keep us alive. So anytime we start to challenge those boundaries, we hit one side or we hit the other, it doesn't feel good. And the body starts to give an indicator of, nope, nope, go this way. That's the tingly spidey sense I'm telling you about. Nope, go this way, or run or hide or freeze, that fight, flight, or freeze mechanism is within those boundaries. And so when we start to change something, we challenge those boundaries and it doesn't feel right. So every second, there are 800,000 cells being reproduced every second. So there's another 800,000. There's another and another. Those cells, the structures in your body, are reproducing at certain rates, different rates, based on whether it's brain cells, muscle cells, skin cells, digestive system cells, different rates. So some of the quickest cells to reproduce is within our digestive tract, about every few days, 7 days. Muscle cells regenerate about every 200 days. Brain cells about every year. Blood cells every 90 days. Bone cells, years to reproduce. But in this moment, there's 800,000 being reproduced. Of all of that, some of them are all of those, right? The significance here is they will live their life out. So it's years, months, days, under the current energetic expression that you're in at this moment, because once upon a time it was believed that the DNA, there was only a certain amount of the DNA that was necessary to build the cell. And it was thought that, it was a very small amount. And so they thought, well, the rest of it is just junk DNA, right? It's useless. I don't know that God makes anything that's useless, or it's a mistake. I mean, I've never seen that in my life, but somebody may prove me wrong someday. But so far, I don't see that. And so I don't believe that there's a junk DNA, and neither did many professionals such as Bruce Lipton. Maybe you've heard of him. And he started studying a lot about the proteins and the genetic expression of the proteins and the influence. And his discovery was that there was an energetic influence, kind of like an antenna within the DNA that actually had its environment, that was reading its environment. And so he took stem cells from the same culture, built them out, and took samples of the same genetic culture of a stem cell, put them in different petri dishes, AKA culture mediums, that were influenced, one being bone, one muscle, one skin. And he saw those stem cells become its environmental influence, skin, bone, muscle. But they were still from the same environment. Why would they change? And the discovery was the outer influence, the environment, was the signaling message that created the bond of the DNA to build its expression. And so he started looking into that more and more to see what was the culture medium? What was that outer influence? Was it this sauce, this juice that he had it in? And what in the sauce had the magic? And it was a energetic or frequency, right? It was a vibration and understanding. And that is a divine understanding, right? That's something that we're not doing. It's happening and being handled for us behind the scenes, but we have an influence. And so the quality and kind of the bone cell, the skin cell, or the muscle cell, the quality and kind were the same. So it's the same kind of muscle cell in the same petri dish, same quality, but the degree in which it was built was different. So quality and degree are, I don't like using the word quality, but that's kind of the terminology. The degree in which that cell was made, instead of 100, like a full 360, it was maybe 340, right? On a full 360-degree circle. And so the cell had a lower quality in some cases than it did the others. And the reason was because of the energy of the influence around the environment, the energy of the influence around the environment. So we have a certain, we all know that emotion has a frequency to it. And one of the highest frequencies is love, right? Some of the lowest frequencies is fear. And so I like to say the opposite of love is fear, right? It's not hatred. But the interesting part about that is they do have a vibrational influence. And so when we are creating those 800,000 cells in 1 second, in this second, and we feel inside anger or frustration or joy or gratitude, those cells will live their life out. The antenna that completed the rest of the genetic structure or the command, right? The antenna that got the rest of the information from the environment is written fear. It's written anger. It's written joy. That part's written into the DNA code through that antenna. And then that cell, that one cell will live its, no, that's 800,000 per second, remember? Will live its life, whether it's bone for several years, whether it's muscle for months, or digestive system for days. It's going to live its entire life under that expression. And it's going to be that, that's going to be that degree of cell. All right. Now let's say that we do that, not just per second, but per day, per week, per month, per year, per decade. We're constantly angry. We're constantly frustrated. We're constantly in joy. Now we're building a body. Now we're building a host, an organic suit of that degree. Every cell over time becomes that exact degree. Okay. Same quality, same kind of cells, skin cells, same kind of cells, bone cells, because the body needs all these pieces, right? That our body's going to build these pieces. But the degree in terms of how complete they are will vary based on that code, right? Based on that frequency. So I'll ask you to think about what you think about, to that inner voice, that inner dialogue that's going on, that's dragging you down, that's criticizing you, that's judging you, that's constantly saying, you know, second guessing you, right? And then the next minute saying, woohoo, you're a rock star, right? And you're amazing. And then seconds later going, oh, why'd you say that? Why did you make that jump up and down and look like a fool in public when you were so excited? You know, I mean, it's like flip flop, flip flop. The cool thing is that now we know what's happening behind the scenes on a genetic level. You can't change that. This is not you saying, well, not my cells. My 800,000 are far more superior. My 800,000 have a rule to be amazing, right? My 800,000, you can't do that. It doesn't work. It doesn't work because it's not you doing it. So your conscious mind is going to say one thing and what it wants. Remember, 2,000 bits. The other 400 billion are at work behind the scenes. So but you do have an influence. You do have a control. And that's done day after day, second after second, habitually over time. And you can shift what's going on within the body by having certain levels of understanding that give value to what I just said. You know, I promise you, I've said this to many people over and over again. And every time we have a conversation, I will remind them, you know, how are those 800,000 cells right in this second? What do you think they are? Who are they going to be throughout their lifetime? And it's like instant reminders like, oh, okay, readjust. And I'm not saying that we're not going to get mad. I'm not saying that we're not going to be sad. You know, if we lose someone special in our lives, there's a grieving period, right? There's a period in which we feel loss, we feel sadness, we feel grief. But if we allow that experience of loss to constantly be a reminder and a rehearsal, day after day, decade after decade, we're not going to heal. The body's ability to heal is amazing. It does it without your help, and it's doing it to the best of its ability with your help. Okay. And I use the word help loosely, because we may not always be helping it to repair in the best fashion, but it's still going to repair. Like I said, 800,000 cells per second being created under your current state of energy, but they're still being created, right? They're still being a part of you that allows you to have skin and muscle and bone and brain. And so you're still able to operate. It's just that you wind up being an operating system that is tainted by that emotion or that energy, because it's built a body over time to express its environment. The beautiful thing about the body is that it will acclimate. You know, we can pluck you out of the tropics and plunge you into a glacier, an ice-capped mountain, and within 72 hours, the body will be adapted to its environment and be able to survive. Okay, or it will have a mind that will come up with solutions to adapt to its environment. Right. So that's the cool beauty that was being done far before you were born. The moment that the hosts, the mother and the father, decided, they didn't even decide, it was starting to become an idea to create this life form, that their entire essence came together and created this life form. And then that life form started to grow, and cell by cell by cell become ready for its environment. And in some traditions, there is a marriage ceremony that before consummation of the marriage, that there is a spiritual journey by both the mother and the father, that they become the best version of themselves, or they start to create an intention for the life of their offspring to be, let's say, the chief of the tribe, or the medicine person, or whatever that they're creating in their intention. And then they come together and consummate. That energy is then bred into the baby. Okay, it's put in there as a signaling agent for the acclimation or becoming of that new person. And then the environment that is around it. So if you're in an environment, if the mother is in an environment of violence and chaos and disorder, then that child is going to be born ready for that chaos and disorder. How? It's the environment that is outside of us, influencing the first layer of our skin, and then going through energetic expressions into the inside of us and building those 800,000 cells per second. So the child becomes ready for the environment that it's going to be born into. No different than the adult that has moved from a tropical environment to a cold environment, that the body is going to become acclimated. No different than if you go to the gym and you start pumping iron, the muscle starts to form and develop so that it can handle the load, so they can survive. Why? Because you keep putting it under that grueling punishment of the exercise routine. And your body's going to acclimate. I know this. I'm sore almost every day because there's a recovery protocol going on to some degree. But that's the thing that I can feel my body is making the adjustments, right? It's no different from that as it is emotional adjustments. And so we build these emotional signals, and this is the loving yourself part, is that these emotional signals, moment by moment, that we're influencing ourselves with, that we're getting on board with, whether justified or not. Okay. Some people, none of you, but some people may get on board with gossip or drama, or some experience out there in your world. You may get on board with that. I know none of you do that, but if you happen to get on board with some of that drama, you're bringing on board whatever's going on out there, maybe it didn't even happen to you. Did you hear what Joe said about her? Oh my God, it was the worst. How can he be that way? I mean, let's give him a piece of our mind, right? So the moment you do that, the body doesn't know the difference between an experience that you make up in your mind because it didn't happen to you. It happened to your friend because of Joe, right? Your body doesn't know the difference. It starts to build the structures to acclimate and adapt to its environment that you're creating in that moment. 800,000 cells per second. As long as you elongate that experience, the moment that you get the news, the moment you get on board with your friend to go give Joe the 1, 2, 3, and then the actual experience of giving the 1, 2, 3, the movements, the physical, all that part is built into the matrix of you and that experience. And the more you build into that matrix, the more components, the smell, the taste, the feeling, the moving of the experience, the more pieces you put into it, the bigger the neurological hardware is being built to support it. And it doesn't matter if you just made it up in a meditation or in a prayer. When you rehearse it to its infinite degree, it's going to be reality to the brain, because the body just gets on board with the information and it becomes coded for it. And now we are acclimated. And the longer we carry that, the more cells per second are being developed under that energetic influence. So is that a bad thing? Well, again, like I said, we're designed to repair, recover, and grow. That's the body's job, all the way until there's no life in it. As long as there's life in your body, right, then the body is still acclimating. In fact, there's studies that show even after death, there's certain things that continue to grow and change, right? Like the hair. Certain stuff starts to change even after death. There's a little bit of a growing period still, which is wow, right? What's doing that? The life has left the body, and yet there's still some work going on. And in certain traditions, they take the body that has the life has left, and they prepare it. They actually do certain things to the body to stop the life from coming back in, because there are practitioners that can bring life back into a dead body and literally re-energize a body. I mean, there's, you can look it up. There's studies and showing where they've done it with birds, you know, and I'm not so sure about humans, but there are, when you can see the energy of life, you can actually see it hovering around a body, not wanting to leave, because this is its host. This is its understanding around this moment in time of life. And I'm not ready to leave it yet, because I had such a great life, or I'm not finished with whatever I was doing. And so life tends to hover around it. You've heard of near-death experiences. This is an example where the body dies, the heart stops, and then it's brought back to life by medicine or by sheer will. And the experience of the host, of the person, comes back and tells you, oh my God, I could see everything. My life flashed before my eyes in a second. Because in that realm, there is no time. There is no space. There's just the present moment. And in the present moment, everything exists. Everything. I mean, from the past to the future, everything. So people who have these NDE experiences, and I love Anita Moorjani's book, Dying to Be Me. Great understanding of what that means. And then her second book called What If This Is Heaven? Those are great reading materials to understand what I'm talking about. And so the whole point of this, this loving yourself portion here is to understand your inner power, understand moment by moment what's happening behind the scenes. Understand that you've got to take responsibility. We have to take responsibility for the creation of who we are. You know, we can't point the finger out there and say, well, this is why I can't, you know, add that 5 pounds of muscle. It's that, it's you, it's this, it's what, it's not there. It's not outside of us that's causing the inability to obtain our goals. It's not outside there. There are perimeters. The reticular activating system has boundaries that's keeping you in a certain spot. You can push those boundaries out. And the way you push those boundaries out is getting beyond the self, getting beyond the physical three-dimensional space. Well, Ken, how the hell do you do that? I've only got my body right here. I mean, what are you talking about? Well, the most ancient and now gaining even more clarity is meditation, prayer. Anytime that you, let's go back. The definition of meditation is just becoming aware. Wow. What do you mean becoming aware? Well, I'm aware that I really don't like Joe and what he did to my friend, you know? Okay. Well, then take responsibility for what that's creating, right? But meditation gives us now that's not an allowance to get beyond the self. You're still attached to a judgment. Meditation is a way to get beyond the physical, three-dimensional, rudimentary self and go into a space that is a creative space. And that creative space is where suggestibility starts to rewire the reticular activating system, rewire our habitual formulations within the brain, literally changing neurological circuits in the brain. Because when we continuously rehearse a thought process, that is synaptic connection after synaptic connection after synaptic connection, fortifying that routine, becomes a multi-lane highway to doubt, to unworthiness. And everything you do goes through that particular neural pathway before it comes to your fingers and hands and makes you do something. It's like a filter. It's like a pair of glasses that's called unworthiness or doubt. We can start building a different set of glasses and a different neural pathway within the brain by practice and finding what I find some of my most effective practices in my life. One particular practice I find is the most effective in changing those neural pathways. It's called curiosity. Curiosity opens the door. It opens the door beyond judgment, beyond worthiness, beyond limit. Because as Albert Einstein says, imagination is far more valuable than knowledge because we can make shit up in here. And we do anyway, because that inner voice says, you suck. And we go, oh, you're right. Even though we just won the Pulitzer Prize. You're like, what? What do you mean you suck? You know, and we believe it. We're making stuff up because our environment, we're seeing these certificates on the wall and these achievements and this bank account. And yet inside we're not complete. And that's making something up. As our outside environment's not necessarily the thing that's doing it, it's the inside environment. So, so the imagination, the curiosity, that piece, if we use that as our gauge, our rudder, I like to call it our rudder, right? My rudder. And I become curious about something, it changes the imprint in my mind. So now, instead of going down that unworthiness multi-lane highway that I've built over my life, it goes down this little tiny path that I had to cut through the jungle with my machete of curiosity. And I become curious about, well, why did that somebody say that my hair doesn't look very good? You know, why did that somebody not like my invitation to dinner? You know, why am I not worthy? The curiosity piece, when we add it to it, we ask a question, we get, well, you know what? I wonder, you know, I've been thinking about my hairdo. Maybe I would change that a little bit, or, you know, I would think on the other side of the coin that I'm a very worthy person of conversation. They just don't know it yet. And maybe I need to let them know a little bit more. Hey, I'm going to call them up again. You know what I'm saying? Being curious about something and not being attached to the lack. That's one of my hacks. And so these are, now we take from that little machete and that little dirt road the more we're curious about life, the more we're curious about everything, the more that little tiny pathway becomes the multi-lane highway of information, the way information passes through. So now when something comes in, it goes through that curiosity door, right? And we act different. And the moment we act different, you know, we get a different experience. And when we create those thoughts, those 800,000 cells per second, now we're starting to build a body, a biology, a platform for all of that to live and act. And the world now, outside the world, instead of seeing this grumpy face, they see this, this curious face, right? Because it starts to become who you are. So those are some fundamentals about loving yourself. When we put value into, or understanding, knowledge is a very big piece of placing value on something. If you don't know that 800,000 cells per second are being created under the current expression of being pissed off, then it's like, who has any value in that? It's like, I have the right to be mad, and I'm going to be mad for a week. Maybe I might be mad for a year. I have the right. It's my life. It's who I am. Come on. You're right. You're right. And if you like who you are, if you are in a homeostasis condition, if you're rocking your life, your relationships, your financial self, your contribution to life and community, if those are all stellar, great. Be that angry person. I promise you that you won't be in alignment though. I promise you. Why? Because anger is a lower vibrational frequency, closer to density. And I want you to understand that because that's important. The higher the frequencies, the closer to information or just pure energy. When we start lowering our vibration down to closer to density, now we are attaching to matter, and matter starts to become influenced by other matter. And other matter, which is environment, can create chaos, and chaos can lead to dis-ease. Dis-ease starts to build biology to replicate disease. And to finish off this segment, the #1 disease in America that's killing the United States citizens is heart disease, right? There's two. The top two are cancer and heart disease. They make up 43%, over 43% of all deaths in the United States, above accidents and above everything else, 43%. And if we look at the body in terms of its energetic self, we break it down from the biology that medicine has to the spiritual side. We can look at things in 7 major categories, and they're the chakras, from the root chakra, the lowest center, up to the crown chakra. And there's 7, and they're allocated. The lower centers are closer to density, and they're represented by color. And if we look at the light color spectrum, the lower frequencies of light are infrared, or the red scale. The higher frequencies of light are purple or violet. And if you look at a rainbow, you'll see that as you start to change the speed of light, it changes color. White is the fastest speed, the most pure, contains all the other spectrums. That's why the sun's light, when it goes through a cloud base or water flowing from rain, becomes a rainbow. It is changing the speed of that perfect white light to show you the different frequencies of color. And they're all going to show up. They're all represented. It's the same thing represented in our body. The lower centers are root chakras, still within the light spectrum, still above matter, but yet still of matter. And in the body starts to, there are certain organs and systems associated with those. So the root, you've got all the way up to, say, the heart. I'll skip the others, but we're just going right to the heart because I want to talk about, we're talking about loving yourself and heart disease. The heart, if you look at what kind of heart diseases are most dominant, they are their heart arrhythmia or in other words, an irregular heartbeat. And then the other one is coronary artery disease, which is blockage. Okay. So take those two conditions, irregular heartbeat, AKA our heart rhythm, or two, the blockage, AKA flow. In human population, not just in America, but in the human population, one of the biggest sacrifices or one of the biggest conditions is worthiness. You know, there's a constant question of our worthiness. And worthiness has a big part about whether we're worthy of love, attention, relationship. And where that lives is in the fourth center, the heart. And so it makes sense that the influences on that system, that organ, is going to be a defective heart or poor energy signals to the heart, creating 800,000 cells per second of a lower quality or a lower degree. And therefore heart disease, dis-ease, starts to become dominant. So think about that for a second. The number one condition for death is heart disease. And of those, there's two conditions, blockage and arrhythmia, or improper rhythm. So to get out of a rhythm, it doesn't matter if it's in your life. Your homeostasis is a rhythm, right? It's a perfect rhythm. And that perfect rhythm allows for the cells and the body to become the best version of themselves and the most efficient and the healthiest. So just take that stuff into account, because you can't discount the influence. You can't discount the statistics. You can't ignore the knowledge and the data. And so in this moment, I'm going to say to everyone here, you can no longer claim ignorance over the influence of your thought or the influence of your energy or your emotion. So loving yourself means to bring yourself to a level of curiosity where you can be curious about what love means or about what joy means in the midst of disorder, in the midst of a insult. Even though you've got the right, you're justified in the sense of being mad. Absolutely. And I'm not saying don't be mad. I'm not saying hold anything in or stifle, because that's, remember, the blockage in the heart. That's what people are doing. Oh yeah, you know, I'm fine. No, what you just said to me did nothing. You know, you can go ahead and say I'm a loser. It's okay. But that's not really the truth, right? The truth is, wow, I'm a loser. Let's be curious about that. Hey, so where's your evidence that I'm a loser? You know, thank you, by the way, for your opinion or your concept. Thank you. I appreciate you giving me this input and this opportunity to explore this. So will you take an hour or two with me and explain what's happening here? I want to be curious. I want you to really give me some great meat and juice about how I'm a loser. And let's talk about that. And they said, well, because you're ugly. Oh, well, let's be curious about, I'm ugly. Oh, wow. Okay. So can we get some pictures of some beautiful people and compare them to the ugly? Let's find out what you think is ugly. And let me put on the table what I think is ugly. And probably there's not gonna be anything on my table because I can find beauty in anything, but apparently you can't. So let's go ahead and talk about this for a moment, right? Let's be curious. Let's get excited, right? So think about that, right? I'm not putting my body in the same energetic expression that they are by simply giving judgment to me, right? Their body is being acclimated to what? The tune of how many? 800,000 cells per second. And now they, sadly, in that moment, are becoming a lesser version of themselves, while I, in that moment, are becoming a greater version of myself and practicing a new biological and new neurological pathway. So, so just those statistics alone might give you an understanding about how much power you have, right? And use that to really, really create or recreate who you are through another modality. And it can be curiosity, it can be gratitude, it can be joy. You can find love in anything, because I want to tell you a little secret. You may not know this, but love, when you love someone, a friend, a family member, a parent, a flower, when you love something, that love is not for them, right? That child, that parent, that flower has no idea what you feel like inside. None. Has no idea. The love that you're feeling for someone else, it's just a trigger for your body to experience it, for you to get on board with something awesome inside, right? And you can do that anytime you want. How do you do that? Drum up something, right? If there's somebody saying you're ugly, in my mind, I'm looking at that flower. I'm smelling it. I'm saying to them, well, let's be curious about why you're ugly, why you think I'm ugly. But inside of me, I'm building my own pathway. And what's that? What am I doing? I'm making shit up because I can. And if I don't, the alternative is to match their energy, right? That's the alternative. This is a practice. I'm not saying today you're going to be amazing at it and you're going to go out today and you're going to do it flawlessly. I'm not saying that. But I am saying that to take responsibility, you can no longer claim ignorance. And loving yourself means that we no longer claim ignorance, that we now decide that we have value, whether anyone else sees it or not, whether that inner dialogue, that little inner roommate sees it or not, doesn't matter. We have value. Why do we know that? Because life is still circulating in this organic suit, period. Make sense? All right. So let's take that fun little thing into a nutshell of loving Healy. All right. Because for those of you that are here that don't know what Healy is, I'm going to give you a simple understanding. Healy is this little guy right here. It's a portable self biohacking system that allows me to bridge the quantum field of information with the biological and physical fields of matter and literally tune frequencies to improve that harmony. Okay. I can bring the best version of me from the field with the biological version of me and now start to build a bridge energetically through frequency technology to align with the best version of me. Okay. That's its simplest form. That's exactly what it's doing. And there's two modalities in which it does that. One is an emission of those frequencies into the field of you, around you, the field of your body. So the proximity of the this physical space. All right. And it does that through a little technology called a noise generator. It actually does send out these frequencies like a radio station, sending it out into the world. And you're receiving it. I'm receiving it right now because if you notice, I don't have anything other than just the little device. And it's just operating. And it's sending a signal into my field. The other way, the other modality is through microcurrent. So we can send those same exact frequencies into the body on a carrier wave of microcurrent. Microcurrent is a very, very low amperage signal going into the body, an amperage of signal that matches the cell membrane voltage, right? It matches the environment that the cell is being produced in. It matches the Petri dish, okay? So now we can send a signal via microcurrent through electrodes that we would wear on our body, through wires that come out of the device into the body, and they're sending very specific signals. There you go. You see Tina up in the top corner of your space. Yep. You see there's some waving of the wand. So these are the wrist bracelets, and you can connect those wrist bracelets to your body. And then you connect the electrodes, the wires that go from those to the device, and they plug into the device in a port in the bottom. And then on your smartphone, you have a regiment of programs. Thank you, Vanna, for your display up there. Those of you who don't know Vanna White, I mean, you probably all do. Anyway, so Tina is now showing what it looks like. And there are programs that you can run into your field, into your body, okay? And those programs, the microcurrent has a tremendous influence on the physical form of us. If we're sitting there in a moment of frustration and anger and disconnect, in an emotional outbreak, a fit, and we are running the, say, I don't know, one of the multitude of programs that Healy has designed. Let's just call, let's say we put in positive thoughts. So there's a program called positive thoughts. And positive thoughts, what's that mean? Well, maybe I have more positive thoughts, right? It's what it's doing is Healy designs these programs in 3 areas. Area 1, what's my target? What's my target? You know, and what's the purpose of the target? If we're talking about thoughts in terms of positive thoughts, that's my target. Number 2, what's its purpose? All right, what's the purpose? Well, positive thoughts, the purpose is to build homeostasis within the body, to align and to extinguish the negative thoughts. Okay, and then number 3, how do I kill it? Right now, when its purpose is for positive thoughts, how do I determine how do I get rid of the negative thoughts? Right. So that's kind of the thing. And then also, how do I clean up the mess afterwards? So that's like the last part. So how do I get rid of the negative thoughts? And then how do I clean up the mess once I've done so? Because have you ever done a detox? Anybody? How about a deep tissue massage? Right. If your self-care isn't optimal, when you move those toxins from the tissues of the body and recirculate them into your bloodstream, and if you don't do a proper regimen of hydration, of movement to allow the lymphatic system to do its job, elimination, then what happens? What happens? It settles right back into the tissues, organs, and systems of your body, and you feel like crap. I mean, trust me, I've done that. I've made a mistake. I'm not, you know, I'm a guy. I'm tough. And yeah, I was sick. And that wasn't it wasn't my first rodeo. I knew better. So again, I was claiming ignorance and that's not a good thing to do. So, so that's the way programs are working. So if we are on a positive thoughts program, it's promoting whatever positive thoughts are for you. It's looking at what's causing anything to not be positive thoughts, what's causing the negatives, how do we get rid of it, and then how we harmonize the person. So if you're sitting there and angry, just frustrated, and you are running positive thoughts, in the background, there are frequencies going into your body through the microcurrent, into your body to start to promote dopamine, right? What's dopamine do for you? Or how about oxytocin? What's that do for you? Oxytocin is love. Man, how can you be angry when you're just in love with life? It doesn't work, right? And so it's starting to promote certain other elixirs that the body already has on board. It's just that your decision maker, the orchestra leader, the frontal lobe, has said, I'm going to be mad. And so there's a little hack going on in the background that says, well, maybe you don't want to be mad. What if I just give you a little oxytocin? Let me just nudge you with a little bit of love. What happens then? All of a sudden you're going, you know, like that really wasn't that bad. Right? Or why am I wasting my time on that, on thinking about Joe? I mean, we all know he's a jerk. Who cares? You know, I mean, so the body starts to become aligned, and the mind says, Okay, right? It happens both ways. The body can be the master or the mind can be the master. At a certain point in life, though, in certain subject matters, the body is the master because we've rehearsed unworthiness so much that there's just an outside trigger that says there's an opportunity to be unworthy. The outside trigger lets the body go, oh, I'm on. I know how to do this. Let's go. Okay. So that starts to happen. It starts to take over. Healy helps the body align on a cellular level. Okay. The cell membrane voltages within the network of cells, So I can go in, let's say that I could call up one cell in my body. Hey, blood cell, I gotta tell you something. I need you to shape up. You know, you're lacking. You're slacking there, blood cell. And that one blood cell will go, right on, man. I got superpower. Let's go. It does nothing, right? That one cell is amazing, right? It does the oxygen transport. It does the nutrient transport, and it's over. But you've got 100 trillion cells sitting here. You know, it's like, how influential is that? It's not very big. So what we're doing is, in positive thoughts, we are addressing a network. We're addressing a whole entity. And when we send those microcurrents into the body, it looks at the resonant frequency of that entity, of that system, right? Positive thoughts. Well, let's look at the brain. So that organ, that system, let's start to change the chemistry. Let's look at what's necessary to resonate with positive thoughts, because right now it's resonating with negative thoughts. So let's see what's going on. And so what happens is every 8 to 10 seconds, this little guy, I should say the app and the network, it's actually, the program is loaded into the Healy hardware. Once you choose the program, it's loaded to the hardware. It runs independently of the app. But once it's in there, it's constantly looking at the body and the resonant frequency for positive thoughts, coming back and giving a report saying, you know what, here's the frequency. This is the bomb for this person. That'll work it out. And so then the system goes, okay, here you go. There's the frequency for 8 to 10 seconds. So it's constantly changing and adjusting based on you. This is an interactive resonance. I don't know if you guys understand. Let me give you the context of resonance. Let's say you were in a soundproof room and you had 2 guitars perfectly tuned to each other, and you plucked one string on this guitar, the other guitar would vibrate without physical touch. There's a sound wave, there's an energy going over from guitar to guitar, interacting, influencing on things that are like tuned or resonant with each other. All right. So what we're doing is we're going into the body and we're looking at how to like tune the body to positive thoughts. And your body is different than my body. Your reason for not having positive thoughts is different than my reason for not having positive thoughts. And so this system is an AI, artificial intelligence system, that's constantly interacting and adjusting only you, right? So if Tina and I both ran the same program, the positive thoughts program, because the app actually shows you exactly which frequency is going into your body, which is another cool feature. If we were sitting there side by side and we were both looking at our programs, we would see some similar frequencies, but then we'd see like, well, how come you're not getting that one? I'm getting that. Mine's better than yours, right? No, but the point is that you'll see that, right? It's resonating with her body and her reason for changing, getting into positive thoughts versus mine. So this is the beauty of this system. It's unique. It's the only system on the planet that actually has a resonant influence that works exactly with you in real time. And here's the other cool thing. So that program, Positive Thoughts, is, say it's 50 minutes long. During that entire cycle, it's going out and seeking what's best for you, coming back and giving you what's best for you, and then seeing what's the percentage of your body's resonance with it. So as my body starts to resonate with that frequency, it raises the energy of what? Of that system, of those cells within that system. The cell membrane voltage, right? We got battery chargers on little cells, and we're charging them back up into their most homeopathic status. And so we're raising it up, and simultaneously the body is giving information back to the app or back to Healy, and Healy is saying, oh, you're X% complete. So it's giving you a progress report from a negative 99% to a positive 99%. It's telling you that one frequency, your body is resonating with it at 50%, at 60%, at 70%, at 80%, and all of a sudden up at 20%. Up. What happened there? Why did it go backwards? Well, because you decide to get back on board with the chaos. I mean, it can go up and down, but the point is, are you resonating with the frequency of positive thoughts? And it's going to do its job whether you want to or not. It just may take longer for the result to show 100%. And then once the result of that one frequency and the resonance with your body gets to 100%, it pitches that particular frequency out of the routine. It doesn't give it to you anymore. The system will not give you what you don't need. So it throws it out. So let's say the program is 50 minutes long. Awesome. At 45 minutes, you're 100% on everything. Like all of the frequencies aligned you instantly, and you had 100% reading on everything. It kicked out those frequencies one by one, and in 45 minutes, you were done. The program will stop. It's like, my job is done, right? When you drink a glass of water and that's all you wanted, you're done. Glass is empty. Don't need any more. My body's full. Same thing. The body's full. So that's how it works. The other layer of what Healy can do in the energetic field, right? The field of information, I like to call the God space. The best version of us is always there. And there's always an influence from that on us. The best version of us is always in the potential field. It's in the potential, but maybe I'm just acting a fool right now and I'm not being that best version, right? But it still can be if I make different choices, if I do different actions. I'll have a different result. So it's always there though. And so when we can also influence the field. So simultaneously, I can send those frequencies to the field and let the field influence my matter, myself here on this three-dimensional space. Because as I mentioned earlier, that if we can prove it mathematically, we can build it electronically. And Marcos Schmika is the developer and the scientist, as well as a monk that designed this. And he used many, many, many different sciences to bring together, not just his, but other leading experts and mathematicians, engineers, scientists from all the way back before Einstein. And there's a mathematician who came up with the ability to prove and solve mathematically 12 dimensions, right? Guess what? Now we have a blueprint for an electronical circuit that can interact with all 12 dimensions. And so what Marcus did is create one that interacts with the third, fourth, and fifth, right? We're at the spiritual side now. Now we're interacting with the quantum field and matter. And that's what this system does. So that's loving Healy. And it correlates to loving ourselves. I wanted to make this no more than 90 minutes. We're at an hour and 19. So I would like to open it up for questions. If anybody wants to ask a question, and I'm open to diving as deep as you wish, but again, for another 11 minutes. Anybody have a question out there? Something in the chat, maybe? Tina, you see anything?
I don't see anything in the chat, Ken. Just a lot of gratitude and appreciation for you and sharing.
You know, you guys are feeding me right now, by the way. So when I don't even have to read that. I don't even have to read that. And wherever you are in the world, when you, and not even just now in this present moment, I'm going to share this recording. So there is no time, there is no space differentiation when it comes to energy. So when people see this and they have some kind of gratitude or some kind of understanding or some kind of aha moment, I'm going to get it, and so will you. Why? Because we are quantumly entangled. The moment you become aware of anything, you become quantum entangled with its energy. So you can never, I like to say it this way, you can never untaste the orange juice. So that's it. If I was to say to any of you, you know, you want some orange juice, there is a blueprint built in your brain. And sometimes you see an image, sometimes you feel it, you experience a taste, maybe a smell, but you're going to have that experience that happens. And that's quantum entanglement with just me through vibration, through electronics going into your ears. And that's the entanglement, creating an experience. And now we, thank you very much, are all entangled. And I love that. So
And
thank you for the
have
gratitude.
a couple of questions now. Can Healy detox, and is coherence program, is that a love program?
Awesome question. So coherence, what's coherence mean to you? Remember, the name creates an understanding, an experience. If I am coherent, do I have any toxins in my body? No. If I am coherent, am I in a lower vibration? No. If I am coherent, am I unworthy? No. So when it comes to creating a program, remember I said there's some umbrellas, and an umbrella in which it's made under, and then there's some goals. And so if there's something that's causing you to be incoherent, that needs to be detoxed or removed or eliminated. Okay, so to the question of detox, I'm answering them both. Does this detox? Yes. What does it detox? Everything. So, but it's doing it. And now let me go back to, remember, I have said that I have not done a proper self-care and gone and done a deep tissue massage and suffered the consequence. Have I overdone it with Healy and suffered the consequence? Yep. Yes, I have. And we just simply, did I die? No. But was I uncomfortable? Yeah. Yeah. It's no different than eliminating an energy that has plagued your body for who knows how long. And now you're eliminating it. Now, don't expect it to happen overnight. If you're going to work on something to disrupt your system for decades and say, I want this fixed today. Come on. Let's get her done. Well, sorry. Those expectations are kind of out there. It does take time, because why? The 3D body, this organic suit, is connected to the three-dimensional space. It has mass. Energy can influence mass, but mass is that rudder on a very slow-moving ship. I'm not saying it's extremely slow. I've had biological upgrades in 1 second, right? But that's a nerve upgrade. That energy can change the nervous system much faster than it can my bone matter, right? So I have had a biological upgrade via energy that changed my entire neurological imprinting. And I'm telling you, it was a struggle for 10 days, because now my entire nervous system, the reticular activating system, 400 billion bits of information was upgraded instantly. And my muscles didn't know how to integrate with that. The signals being sent from my brain to my muscles were of different caliber. And my muscles were used to, the cell receptor sites on my muscles were used to an old platform, right? And so the new platform had to figure out how to talk its language. I'm sorry, other way around. The muscles had to learn how to talk the new language platform, had to learn this. The new language, the new platform of the nervous system, done. Once you taste the orange juice, you can't untaste the orange juice or taste the Kool-Aid. You know, you're boom, you're updated. You're not going back. Once you experience bliss, do you ever want to give up that experience? Once you experience love, contentment, do you ever give that up? No. So the same thing here. My neurology was updated and my muscles, systems, tendons had to catch up. I'm a martial artist. I am so familiar with the movements of my body and spatial recognition that I can do it with my eyes closed. I do. But I couldn't even hit a step. I was misstepping off of a curb. I couldn't grab my cup. I mean, things were like off. and that was not comfortable. 10 days, and it was painful. I mean, I'm talking skeletal painful, where the body had to reorganize its ability. And what is pain? Pain is a signal to the brain saying something's up, right? And there was something up, something big. So
We do have a couple more questions in here, Ken.
Okay.
One, how can I explain the quantum field sending frequencies remotely in 5 minutes or less? Go.
Woo, love it. Okay. Quantum entanglement. If you ever become aware of anything in space and time, you are now linked to it. The moment you place your awareness on it, you place your energy on it. No different. When you think of a relative, a loved one, a pet, what do you feel? It generates a feeling in the body. So no different than the placebo effect. If you believe that you're being healed, the body will respond in kind. Done.
Okay. And then we have, will you briefly talk about suggested programs, days, and why? Are you talking about how many times in a day to run a program, Bethany? Talk about suggested programs, day, and why.
So, okay, how many programs do you run? How much do you run Healy, right? My Healy is probably on 15 hours a day, whether it be using it via microcurrent or using it via the field. All right. And not just me. If I'm not using it on me, I'm using it on someone else. Right. Because there's a lot of people I love. and I have a tool here. You know, when you have the most amazing tool, I have a tool, they're called glasses. I wear them. I use them. They're my tool. Now, am I working on changing that? Yep. To where I don't need this tool. So what am I doing to do that? Well, guess what? There's a program called Eyes, right? There's a program called Eyes that I can use to help just to see what happens. It's an experiment. So I use what the company says. Now, remember, any organization that can become liable for anything else, we're an organization, each one of us, we're liable for anything else. So Healy always will err to the cautious side. In medical practice, you know that, malpractice stuff, you know, they will err to the cautious side. So they'll say 3 to 4 programs a day, right? Now, that is true. If one is in very, very dire straits, in other words, the body is very diseased or disordered, then you want to take it slow, because it's an unhealthy body that can handle the very smallest amount of influence, right? You take an unhealthy body and shove it full of too much, it's going to, it's not going to be able to handle that much volume. So we need to take it slow. 3 to 4 microcurrent programs per day. The energy field or the emissions of the device, where you're working with just the energy field or the quantum field, that can be more. But again, use yourself as a rudder to how much you use this. We've got to take responsibility for our own health. We can't go, man, I ran Healy too much. It sucks. That system, who made that choice? I made that choice, and I am now feeling the effects, and I learned something. If I allow it to become knowledge now, I'm not going to be so likely to do the same thing over and over again. If we are doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result, that's what? Insanity.
And Linda is asking, she's just getting started, so what program would be best for her to start out with?
So Healy has built, great question. Healy has created a page, the gold page, which comes with every edition. It's the starting point. It's got 7 programs on there, and each one has a unique ability for every entity. Now, I didn't say every human. It does for every human, but every entity, pet, building, car, group, whatever. Because the labels that are in there, one that I love especially is called care. And this is the one I want to bring to the attention on loving yourself. It's called care. If someone was to just come up beside you and just care for you, how's that feel? Right? Just care for you, whatever that feels like, whatever that means to you. Your mind is already designing what that means. Oh, Ken's giving me a hug. Right on. Yeah, hug me back. Come on. So that's what I'm talking about. So care is on that page, on the gold cycle page. There's 7 programs. I recommend 1 a day, just 1 a day. Just start there and write down what you observe. It's like, wow, you know what? All that chaos I'm used to in my house felt a little easier to manage today. You know, and at the end of the day, now each one of those programs is max like 50 minutes. They're not very long, but just run one a day and observe.
Okay, Linda's asking, to do that, does she need to wear the electrodes for the gold cycle?
No, you don't have to. Remember I said any one of those programs, whether they're from the microcurrent side or the resonance side or the field side, they're still sending the same frequencies out of the noise generator of the device. You do need to have Healy next to you if you're running it from the microcurrent programs, because there's no intention. So when Healy is running the microcurrent programs, aka the Healy app or Pink Dot, it's sending it just out blanketly, right? There's no attachment to a client or person. On the other side of the fence, when you're running the Heal Advisor Analysis app, which is the resonance part, it has a client that it's sending that to, which is you or whoever your client is. Now, remember the quantum entanglement? So now the device and the entire system, the AI system, as well as the cloud system, is now in its intention is all on you or all on the client. So now it's got a direction. It's got an amplitude. It's got all of the pieces it needs to send it directly to you. The quantum entanglement says it's only going. Now, is it only going to you? No, no. I've done many sessions with people in person and remote where I'm sending them a certain regiment of programs from that particular program, from that resonance app, from the Blue Dot. And I'm paying attention to my sensations, and I'm getting stuff, you know? And I'm like, and then at the end of the session, I'm like, wow, that was awesome. Thank you. Right.
You just answered another question that was in the chat. So that's great.
I love that. A twofer today.
A twofer. Do you have time for one or two more, Ken?
We're at the 1 hour, 32 minute, but yeah, we'll take two more.
Okay. So one is, does the protection program work and help with 5G? And the second question is, someone read that they needed good Wi-Fi connection with little interference for Healy to work. Great
questions. Those are good techie ones. Start to get my electronics engineering brain alive. So I'm left-handed, but very analytical. So I've got yeah, fun stuff. Anyway, the 5G, the protection page has a electrosmog, they call it, so-called electrosmog program that's on there, and you can use that. So what's 5G? Okay, anything above the microwave transmission, so 2.4 gigahertz, right? Your microwave, if you have a microwave in your house, it puts out that same frequency in a container. The Healy itself, the Bluetooth signal is 2.4 gigahertz, but it's a BLE or a Bluetooth low energy. It's the lowest energy that you can emit from a Bluetooth device and still have any kind of connection. And its connection range is only 32 feet. So it's not very far. So, and that's only a clear line of sight. So if you're trying to go through walls or in your car, out of your car, whatever interference, it's going to reduce that 32 feet down even more. So yes, there's 2.4 gigahertz coming out of this, but it's the lowest interfering frequency you can get, or amplitude you can get. And so our bodies, remember what I said, they acclimate. So there's a disruption, and this is my own opinion. This is not something I'm going to say from a compliant type of statement. This is my own opinion, nothing to do with corporate or anybody else. But you're going to see shifts in the human race every time a new technology is introduced, because we have to acclimate to whatever energetic influences are being experienced by the body. It's happened over the decades. You can look at any launch. As soon as radio became a thing and started transmitting, let's go back even further. As soon as Tesla started to design energy transmission or actually understand energy transmission from point A to point B and amplify the signal to get it across the airspace. The human race had to acclimate, or the people within the environment had to acclimate to the interference or the influence of the signaling in the field. So people start to feel things. Some humans are already built for these changes. This is some of the genetic expressions of evolution. Some are not. And the ones who are less genetically prepared are going to feel the effects in illnesses, soreness, fog, whatever. And I want to say that every major, we'll call it pandemic, has an associated shift in technology preceding it, because the body has to acclimate and it becomes almost global. So our bodies are going to acclimate to 5G. They are already doing it. Some people are already genetically capable and having no influence. Others are having influence. So Healy is another tool, not a replacement. It's not going to get rid of what's going on or being experienced. Technology is going to move forward. If it doesn't move forward, it will probably collapse in its entirety. And if that happens, we wouldn't be doing this right now. But we want technology to be benefiting human beings. And it's sadly, money talks, and some of the things that were launched before preparation of the human race has happened. Healy has the ability to help negate some of the influences on the body, or to buffer, right? Buffer and help you feel a little bit better. So will it hold it off? Nope, it's not. You got to put yourself in a copper room, that will stop it, right? But your cell phone won't work, I promise. Your computer won't connect to Wi-Fi, I promise. You know, anything with Bluetooth will not operate. But our bodies are an amazing organism. And if you just believe in that, more than you believe in the suffering, I just gave you a lot of information. You can't claim ignorance as to how your thoughts are influencing your thing, your body. So let that be your kung fu. All right. Did I help? The protection program does have some valid protection to it. And the protection program, if you'll notice in the picture, it says put it in your pocket, put it on the outside of your body, in your proximity. You can also connect the leads to it, because it's sending out the microcurrent in exactly the same thing to influence the ATP production of the cell structure in your body for the purpose of that program. So you can still hook up. I do. I hook up. So you don't have to use it without cables. You can use it with cables and it'll give you the same. Actually, I like the microcurrent because the ATP production, or the influence on the cell membrane voltage, helps cell receptor sites. It changes the biology of you, right? Improving and helping your biology energetically. Okay. All right. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for being here. I so much appreciate your input and your participation. And I look forward to providing the recording. However you got this onto this call today, go back to that regimen, or that portal, and that's where I will share the recording. So I love you all. And remember, that energy will propagate outside of you. So loving yourself, you got to do that first before the rest of the world can feel it.